Hi guys, welcome back to Quality Shot Boxing. I'm Ali, and in today's video, we'll be talking about the recent and very upsetting cancellation of the fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, the third fight in the trilogy of the Eubank versus Benn rivalry. As I'm sure you're all aware, Conor Benn was recently found with a banned substance called clomiphene, which essentially, in a brief nutshell, because I'm not a scientist, I don't know the exact science behind it. It works essentially by stimulating the body's own production of testosterone, and it helps to provide somewhat similar effects to perhaps taking an injection or alternative forms of testosterone, which obviously, for obvious reasons, is not something that we want to see in sports and boxing. I mean, we've seen that with the whole saga beforehand, that Chris Eubank and his side, and Conor Benn's Eubank always going at it. And the weird thing is that Chris Eubank Sr., the father, he's been saying that his son's not going to make the weight, and that fighting 3 pounds below or above the weight, I think it was below the weight, is going to cause or can cause serious brain problems. And I think he's quoted as saying, "We all know what can happen." I mean, that's a very understandable thing from both a father's perspective, a personal perspective, a father's perspective, but also from a professional perspective. So as he's one of the key members of staff within his son's, camp, or key figures, should I say, within his son's boxing career, I can also understand why he's being, from that protective sense. Having said that, when he's talking about the weight being drained and whatnot, at the same time, we also see Chris Eubank posting videos of him eating steak, him eating fat, juicy burgers. As tasty and as amazing as that sounds, and I'm sure we all want to have a nice fat burger after a long, hard, intensive session, knowing that you do that and you're posting it, knowing full well that you are getting the reaction you get, whilst your father is also saying the opposite of what you're doing, is very, not just weird and ironic, in a sense, for me personally, very disrespectful towards what your father is saying, and or whether, if you don't want to see it from the father's perspective, what the senior member of your coaching team, what senior member of your camp and your so-called side or corner are doing. So, I mean, even if people say, "Oh, it fits his macros, it fits his nutrients," having that particular burger has the right levels of protein, nutrients, same thing with the steak. In my opinion, knowing that you post it in such a way and with such a smug look, because he had a very smug look when he was eating the burger, he's doing it for a reaction. And I just don't understand that. I don't see why he is doing that. I mean, you're saying you're going to be 60%, you're going to be like at 60% in terms of your weight, you have a rehydration clause, you have this. Why are you doing things that not only appear to be wrong, and even if they're not, you're doing it to elicit a reaction from people? Okay, if you're going to say, "Oh, to drive up more hype, more hate," okay, but it just doesn't make sense. There are certain ways in which you can drum up, attention and hype and build so much hype for the fight. But when you do it in such a way, it just does not make sense. That's from the Eubank side. From the Conor Benn side, and quite, in fact, very rightly so, I understand why he's getting a lot of the hate. In a sport that is heavily regulated, heavily, there's so much a pressure on athletes not to take drugs. It's heavily regulated in that respect. I don't understand why you would do something like this. I mean, you're undefeated. You're a huge prospect. Why on earth would you go and take these substances like that? I mean, are you afraid? If Ben had not taken the substances, would he genuinely believe he has a genuine chance of beating Eubank? I disagree. I don't think so. I don't think he would have. So I think he did it perhaps out of fear that maybe he made a bad decision. Maybe he went too hasty in making his decision that, yes, I want the Eubank fight. I think perhaps he should have had a few more fights at a higher level, at a higher weight class, maybe in the same way that Canelo has had, or the same way that, Usyk has had before he's done what he's done in the heavyweight division. He's had essentially a few tune-up fights in the division. And I think that is something that he should have done, something that he should have done fun before jumping into a fight with Chris Eubank. I mean, it's an absolute disgrace and embarrassment to the sport that you take, or any athlete takes performance-enhancing drugs. And quite frankly, before the fight, I really wanted Conor Benn to win. I just like, I like his demeanor, how he acts, his persona more so than Chris Eubank. But I think after that, my respect for Conor Benn has dropped massively. I hope he learns from this and he knows not to do something stupid and incredibly reckless like this again. But only time will tell. Having said that, having spoken and criticized both perspectives, I'm going to say something that is perhaps one could say slightly more controversial than what the general public would be thinking in regards to who's at fault here. Yes, Conor Benn is at fault for what he's done. He's wrong, but I don't think he's the main source of the problem. I think this problem, and most certainly could and will be eradicated, if all the the drug not governing bodies, but the drug bodies, the VADA and the UK WAD, I forgot how to say it exactly. If instead of having not discrepancies but inconsistencies with what substances are banned, what substances are not, by merging, or even if they don't merge, have a joint venture agreement whereby all the governing bodies related to drugs and prohibited substances say, okay, we are going to form a merger, a union, which says all these substances are disallowed, and this is a universal rule, whether for the UK, abroad, wherever. I think this is something that needs to be done, and this will most certainly have a trickle-down effect. I guarantee you, if all of these drug bodies, I'm just going to call them drug bodies, if all of these drug bodies came together before and I said, okay, irrespective of our different organizations, if we agree in unison and we have this as a step going forward, we are going to make sure that we as a universal rule, that these things will not be allowed. That will then cause the fighters to think that, okay, beforehand I could take this, now I can't. So therefore, in my opinion, and logically, it will most certainly decrease or massively decrease the likeliness of athletes taking performance-enhancing drugs, because the substance clomiphene that Ben was found to have taken, if I am not mistaken, I believe that it's prohibited by VADA, but it's not prohibited by UK WAD or UK WAD, or could be the other way around. My point is, one of the bodies said you can take it, it's not banned. The other body said no. Which one does the fighter follow? Okay, I understand certain fights in the contract is stipulated perhaps that within the clauses that a certain body will take jurisdiction or take control over the drug testing policies, and in that respect, now Conor Benn is also very stupid to have gone against it. But in his mind, he's probably thinking, well, if I've previously been tested by this drug body before, and they said I can take this, and suddenly this one comes in, I'm happy with beforehand. I'm going to do what I want, what I was used to doing beforehand. So it's very stupid that from both ends, Conor Benn taking the substances, but also these bodies not agreeing together. Okay, this is what's going to happen, and I mean it's a very common thing within the the organization, but the major four, the WBC, WBO, WBA, and IBF. I mean, rather than having four separate champions in the division, they should come together, or at least merge, and say you're going to have one champion for the entire division. That's it. This is how they used to do it beforehand. One champion, none of all this nonsensical multiple 1,000 million belts. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. It's destroying the sport that we love. It's destroying the sweet science. That's not what we want to see. That's not what we want to happen. So they need to come together and essentially form just a one championship thing, like world champion. Similarly, all these drug bodies need to come together, merge together, stay firm, and say these substances are banned. You cannot take them. If you take them, you will incur a massive penalty, a massive fine, or you'll be banned for X amount of time. And that is definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, going to clear up the whole boxing game. And it needs to start off somewhere. I understand perhaps, for commercial reasons or whatnot, that they, one body may get paid more or this. I mean, I don't know exactly the intricacies of it, but it's wrong. It's destroying the sport. I mean, it's bad enough there are corrupt referees, corrupt judges, and corrupt decisions being made. Why do it when it comes to matters of life and death? Because taking performance enhancing drugs could most certainly be a matter of life or death. Like, I don't understand why people do it. Another issue regarding this whole saga, this whole drama, is the British Boxing Board of Control not sanctioning the fight. I wholeheartedly agree with them. Absolutely correct decision. But then there were talks of the Luxembourg Boxing Board of Control coming in to sanction the fight. I mean, they did so with the David Hain Chisora fight about 10 or so years ago, after the whole fracas, after post Chisora Klitschko fight, where they both had the fight, and I think they were banned or the licenses were revoked, or essentially at the time that they agreed the fight, they didn't have the licenses. The British Boxing Board of Control, as a result, did not sanction it. The Luxembourg board came in. I was thinking perhaps, I don't understand why they wouldn't have come in, because this is very much a hype fight. I mean, it's got the history behind it. There is far more animosity, far more ill feeling between Eubank Jr. and Benn Jr. compared to Hay and Chisora. So I don't understand why perhaps they didn't come in to sanction it, because we've seen them do it beforehand. But I mean, if there's something that they've learned from the lessons, or Eddie Hearn, or Matchroom, or Frank Warren, or whoever else, all these different promoters nowadays have learned from the lessons. Perhaps they were, I don't know, threatened with fines or penalties, or essentially, had they agreed to go with a foreign body like the Luxembourg Board of Control, it would have adversely affected them in future bouts, and most certainly affected their relationship with the British Boxing Board of Control. I mean, it's one of the biggest and most iconic, in my opinion, one of the biggest and most iconic boxing boards in the UK. The British boxing is a key nation. British boxing is a key place, key moment, not key moment, a key nation for boxing. So it only makes sense that the British Boxing Board of Control is held in such high regard, such high esteems. So, I mean, the fight was delayed, rightfully so. I think Conor Benn needs to be fined massively for this. I think, but even more so, I think the drug bodies need to get their act in order. They need to get themselves in order, fix up, because this is not on at all. By having discrepancies, you're just opening the floodgates for other situations to happen. We've seen previously with Canelo Mexican Beefgate, if that's what you want to call it, happen, and it's just not right. It's a poison to the sport that we love, to the sweet science. It's not something we want to do. Having said that, moving forward, whenever this fight is given a new date, and providing both fighters now adhere and stick to the rules, it's going to be an interesting fight. I think it's going to add more hype, more excitement to the fight, more drama, because obviously all this controversy here beforehand. It'll be very interesting to see what happens, see what the outcome is. But there's something that we have to wait. We have to wait until Eddie Hearn or Matchroom and the other side, Kel Sunderland, make a decision. I believe they're also taking legal action against the British Boxing Board of Control. We have to wait to see what the outcome is then. But yeah, I mean, let me know what you think down below about this whole drama. Whose side are you on? Are you with Team Benn, or are you with the Team Eubank, or are you against the Boxing Board of Control? Are you with them? I guess, I can already tell beforehand, most people would be against Team Benn. Perfectly understandable. But the way I see it is, just because someone makes a mistake, someone that does this very stupid decision, doesn't necessarily mean that it's always their fault. It's always something that leads them to it, or something that enabled them to do it. I'm not saying it's in any way, I'm not in any way, shape or form supporting Conor Benn's actions. I'm completely against it. I find them to be very abhorrent. But when making decisions on matters like this, we need to take into account all the factors. But guys, honestly, thank you so much for tuning in. Guys, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe down below. If anything I've said you agree with, please do let me know. If anything I've said that you disagree with, please do let me know. We were initially meant to have the live watch along this Saturday, but unfortunately, obviously for the today's matters, that won't be going forward. But when it does get re-announced, we will most certainly be doing, a live watch along. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have a great day.